Listen to me, because I'm about to say something that might sting. If a man is ignoring you and you're sitting there scrolling through your phone, rereading his last text, wondering why he hasn't responded, making excuses for him, then girl, let me slap you with reality. You're destroying your own worth. Every second you waste wondering why he's silent is a second where you shrink yourself. And that's exactly what men who ignore women count on. They count on you losing your self-respect while they sit back and feel powerful. But here's the truth. You don't need to cry over his silence. You don't need to beg. You don't need to lower yourself. What you need to do is destroy his ego. Not by screaming, not by chasing, not by proving yourself. You destroy his ego by standing in your power, by showing him that his little silence game doesn't shake you. It only exposes how small he actually is. Let me tell you something. History is full of women who didn't beg for attention. Cleopatra didn't beg. She made emperors and kings bend to her presence because she understood one thing, that when a woman owns her worth, men come crawling. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And that's the exact message I want burned into your mind right now. You cannot control whether a man ignores you, but you can absolutely control how you respond, and your response determines whether you look like a queen or a desperate little girl. So let's get into it. I'm about to give you 7 powerful ways to destroy a man's ego when he ignores you. Not by lowering yourself, but by raising your standards so high that his silence becomes the very rope he uses to hang his pride. Let's start with the first 2, and trust me, if you take these seriously, you won't ever waste your tears on a man's silence again. First, stop chasing him. Start ignoring back, but with power. I need you to hear this loud and clear. A man who ignores you is not testing you to see if you'll fight for him. He's testing to see how much of your dignity you're willing to throw away for his crumbs of attention. And the more you chase, the bigger his ego grows. So you want to destroy his ego? You don't text him. You don't call. You don't send that long paragraph explaining how hurt you are. You go silent. But here's the key. Your silence has to be filled with power. Because there's a difference between sulking in silence and radiating silence. Think of it this way. Imagine a queen on her throne. If someone storms out of her palace in arrogance, does she run after them? Number. She keeps sitting on her throne because she knows the palace doesn't leave with him. The power is still with her. That's how you need to think. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, once said, "He who is brave is free." Do you understand how that applies here? The bravest thing you can do is free yourself from the grip of his ego games. And when you stop chasing, when you match his silence with your silence, his ego starts to shrink. Because men thrive on reaction. They feed off the drama, the crying, the constant checking in. Take that away, and suddenly he's left in the dark with no energy to feed on. That's when his mind starts racing. Picture it. He's sitting there thinking, why isn't she begging? Why isn't she chasing? Did she find someone else? Did she stop caring? And slowly, his little power trip collapses. That's how you destroy his ego, by refusing to play his game. And let me give you something practical. Next time he ignores you, instead of blowing up his phone, I want you to live your life so loudly that your silence echoes in his soul. Post that photo where you look stunning, not for him, not as bait, but as a declaration that you don't pause your glow because of his absence. Go out with friends, learn something new, build your empire. Because while he's ignoring you, you're upgrading. That's the kind of silence that screams louder than any words. 2. Redirect your energy. Show him he's not the center of your universe. Now let's get into the second way. Because ignoring him back isn't enough if you're still secretly obsessed with him in your head. This is where you shift your energy. Listen, men have egos that thrive on being the center of your attention. Even if they ignore you, part of them still believes you're sitting there waiting. That's the cruel trick of male arrogance. They can vanish, but deep down, they think you'll keep orbiting around them like the moon around the earth. So you want to destroy that ego? Break the orbit. Show him, through your actions, that your life doesn't revolve around him. Let me take you back to history for a moment. Have you ever heard of the story of Hypatia of Alexandria? She was one of the first great female philosophers and mathematicians in ancient times. Men tried to silence her, diminish her, even erase her brilliance. But she kept teaching, kept leading, kept shining in her intellect. She didn't shrink herself to fit into their fragile egos. And that's why, centuries later, we still speak her name. Do you think she wasted nights wondering why some man didn't text her back? No, she was too busy being a force. That's the energy you need. If he ignores you, you pour yourself into things that elevate you. Hit the gym, start that business, dive into your passions. When a man sees that his absence didn't dim your light, that instead, you redirected your energy to your own growth, it cracks his ego wide open. Because suddenly, he's not the main character in your story anymore. You are. And let's get practical again. If you're tempted to call him or check in, stop yourself and do something else that directly benefits you. Write down your goals. Call a friend who actually values you. Learn a new skill. Put on that killer dress and take yourself out to dinner. These actions aren't petty. They're powerful. They're signals to the world and to yourself that your life is bigger than one man's attention. Do you know what's even better? Men are wired to crave what seems scarce. When your energy is fully on him, he feels no urgency, no fear of losing you. But when you redirect your energy to yourself, when you become scarce, when he sees you're not begging, that's when the panic hits him. That's when his ego shatters. Because nothing is more terrifying to a man than realizing he doesn't control your world anymore. And let's be real. Do you know why so many women fall into weak patterns? Because they think silence equals love lost. But I'm here to tell you, silence can be the greatest teacher. When you stop giving him your energy, you teach him that love is not guaranteed, attention is not infinite, and you will not sit there like a loyal puppy while he plays his little ignoring games. That's how you flip the script. That's how you destroy the ego of a man who thought you couldn't live without him. So here's what I want you to remember so far. If a man ignores you, your first weapon is silence, but silence with power, not silence with pain. And your second weapon is energy, pulling it back from him and pouring it into yourself until you shine so bright that his ego can't even handle the glare. And I promise you, if you practice just these two, you will feel a shift inside you. You'll stop obsessing, you'll stop shrinking, and you'll start realizing that when a man ignores you, it's not the end of the world, it's the beginning of your power. But we're not done yet. There are more ways, deeper ways. You can destroy his ego without lifting a finger, without sending a single desperate message. And when I tell you the next ones, you'll start to see just how much control you actually have when you stop letting weak men dictate your worth. Let's be brutally honest. Most women lose the battle the moment they let a man's silence define their worth. You sit there checking your phone, convincing yourself that if he ignores you, it must mean you're not enough. And that mindset, that's exactly what inflates his ego. He feels like a king, sitting on his imaginary throne while you kneel before his absence. But listen carefully. When a man ignores you, it's not a sign you're powerless. It's an opportunity to show him that his little game doesn't bend you. His silence, that's not a wall. It's a mirror. And if you know how to play this right, that mirror will reflect back everything he's terrified of losing. You've already learned the first two weapons, your silence and your energy. Now let's sharpen 3 more blades that cut straight into the ego of any man who dares to ignore you. 3. Build an aura of mystery. Don't let him read you like a book. Here's the reality. Most women destroy themselves by being too predictable. A man ignores them, and immediately they react, double texting, liking his posts, trying to remind him they exist. And just like that, he knows he's got her wrapped around his little finger. He knows every move you'll make before you even make it. You want to destroy his ego? Stop being predictable. Start being a mystery. Think of Marcus Aurelius again. He often wrote about the importance of controlling one's impulses, not letting emotions dictate actions. Imagine if you applied that here. Instead of reacting to his silence, you sit back and move differently. He expects you to beg? You don't. He expects you to sulk. You glow. He expects you to post a sad song lyric. You post nothing. Suddenly, he can't read you. And when a man can't read you, his ego crumbles. Because men hate losing control over what they thought they understood. Look at modern movies. Have you seen Gone Girl? Remember Amy Dunn? Now, I'm not saying you fake your own disappearance like she did, but think about why her character was so powerful. It's because she was unpredictable. Her husband thought he had her figured out, but she was always 10 steps ahead. That unpredictability is terrifying to men, and that's the energy you need. Not chaos, but mystery. Practically speaking, this means you don't need to announce every detail of your life. Stop oversharing on social media. Stop updating him or the world about what you're doing. If he's ignoring you, let him wonder. Let him scroll through your feed, looking for clues and finding none. Let him sit in silence with his own paranoia. Because trust me, when a man can't read you, his ego feels like it's being starved. 4. Elevate your standards. Make him realize he's replaceable. Now let's get to the 4th point, and this one is lethal. Elevate your standards so high that his silence feels cheap. Most women cling to one man as if he's the only option on the planet. But let me ask you something. Do you really think Cleopatra sat around crying because one Roman general didn't call her back? Number. She knew her power attracted kings and rulers. She understood that men are not rare diamonds. They're stones you can find everywhere. It's your standards that determine which ones get to stay in your palace. So how do you destroy his ego with this? By reminding him, not with words but with action, that he's not the prize, you are. Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, said something powerful. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. What he meant was, people act as if their losses are permanent, when in reality, life is full of endless options. Stop acting like one man's silence is the death of your love life. You're not trapped. You're free. Practically, this means you don't sit around waiting. You go on with your life. And yes, that can include dating other men if you choose. And even if you're not dating, you live in a way that communicates abundance. You raise your standards in how you allow yourself to be treated. You show him, through your confidence and independence, that he is not the center of your world. And do you know what happens when you do this? His ego takes a direct hit, because a man who ignores you thrives on thinking you have no other options. When you show him you have infinite options, suddenly he's the one feeling replaceable. And nothing slices through a man's ego like realizing he's just another name on the list, not the only name carved in stone. 5. Control the frame. Never let him dictate the narrative. Now for the 5th point, and I need you to really lean in for this. Control the frame, because the one with the frame always has the power. What do I mean? When he ignores you, he's trying to frame the story like this. I'm the one in control. I decide when we talk. I decide how important she is. I decide the tempo. And most women fall right into that frame. They let him dictate the rhythm. They let him decide the narrative, and before they know it, they're dancing to his music. But you're not going to let that happen. You're going to seize the frame and flip the script. Let's take an example from modern cinema. The Devil Wears Prada. Miranda Priestley, played by Meryl Streep, controlled every frame of her world. People didn't dictate to her. She dictated to them. Even in silence, even with just a look, she framed every interaction. That's why everyone respected her, even feared her. She didn't beg for attention. She commanded it by controlling the narrative. How do you apply that? If a man ignores you, you don't let the story become, "He has the power, and I'm waiting." You make the story. I'm the one who chooses what energy I engage with. I'm the one who decides who gets my time. You do this by refusing to acknowledge his silence as anything significant. If he returns later with a text, you don't respond with, "Where have you been?" You respond from your own frame, as if you weren't sitting there waiting at all. A simple, detached answer, short, confident, uninterested. That tells him, "You don't dictate this. I do." And let me pull in Marcus Aurelius again, because his words cut straight to the core. You have power over your mind, not outside events. His silence? That's an outside event. Your frame? That's your power. And once you hold that frame, you've destroyed his ego without even raising your voice. First, you silence him with your silence. Second, you redirect your energy to yourself. Third, you build mystery so he can't predict you. Fourth, you raise your standards until he realizes he's replaceable. And fifth, you seize the frame and never let him dictate the story. Do you see the pattern here? None of this is about chasing. None of this is about proving yourself. Every step is about reclaiming the power that weak women keep handing away. But we're not finished yet. There are still 2 more weapons left, and they are the sharpest of them all. If you thought these 5 were powerful, wait until you hear the final 2. They will not just destroy his ego, they will rebuild yours into something unshakable. Because once you've mastered silence, redirected your energy, built mystery, elevated your standards, and seized the frame, you've already stripped a man of most of the power he thought he had. But I promised you 7 weapons, and these last 2 are the sharpest blades you'll ever carry. They're not just about destroying his ego. They're about forging a version of yourself so powerful that his silence feels laughable compared to the noise of your greatness. 6. Master emotional detachment. Be untouchable. Let's get real for a second. Most women collapse the moment they feel rejected. His silence cuts them deep, not because of who he is, but because of what it triggers. The fear of not being enough, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being unworthy of love. And that's where women surrender their power. You want to destroy his ego? You need to master emotional detachment. That means his silence doesn't control your emotions. His ignorance doesn't dictate your happiness. His absence doesn't define your worth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Do you understand how powerful that is? His silence only hurts because of the meaning you attach to it. You tell yourself, "He's ignoring me, so I must not matter." But the truth is, his silence is just silence. It's you who gives it meaning. Detach. Step back. Ask yourself, why am I letting a man's silence shake me? Because once you stop reacting emotionally, once you become untouchable, his ego collapses. Why? Because men thrive on control. They want to know they can push buttons and get reactions. But when you're calm, unbothered, glowing, and detached, he loses his grip. Think of Stoic warriors, Spartans, Romans, women of history who endured hardships without flinching. Do you think they cried over someone's silence? Number. They were too busy, living, fighting, building legacies. You need that same untouchable energy. When you master detachment, you don't just destroy his ego, you free yourself from the prison of needing his validation. 7. Replace him without hesitation, the final blow. And now, the last weapon, the ultimate ego destroyer. Replace him, without hesitation, without announcement, without drama. You see, the male ego feeds on the belief that he's irreplaceable, that no matter how much he ignores you, you'll always wait, always hope, always cling. That's why so many women stay stuck. They think loyalty means tolerating disrespect, but loyalty to a man who ignores you is nothing but betrayal to yourself. Destroy his ego by proving the one thing he's most afraid of, that you can and will move on without him. Look at history. Think of queens who outlived kings, women who remarried, rebuilt, and thrived. They didn't sit by graves of the past, weeping forever. They found new alliances, new love, new power. Even in modern times, look at movies like Legally Blonde. Ella Woods didn't sit around pining for Warner after he dumped her. She rebuilt herself, got into Harvard Law, and proved she was never dependent on him. And what happened? Warner's ego shattered when he realized she was out of his league all along. That's the move you need. If a man ignores you, and you've already given silence, mystery, detachment, and raised standards, and he still doesn't step up, replace him, because the moment you do, his ego implodes. He thought he had endless time, endless power. But when you show him you have the courage to close that chapter and start a new one, you give him the final blow he never saw coming. So let me burn this into your mind one last time. If a man ignores you, you do not crumble. You do not chase. You do not beg. You rise. You rise with silence that cuts deeper than any words. You rise by redirecting your energy into yourself. You rise by wrapping yourself in mystery. You rise by raising your standards until he looks small. You rise by controlling the frame of the story. You rise by mastering detachment. And finally, you rise by replacing him without hesitation. That's how you destroy a man's ego when he ignores you. Not by shouting, not by pleading, but by standing so firmly in your worth that his silence becomes irrelevant. And let me say this. This isn't about revenge. This is about reclaiming your throne. Because every time you let a man's ego games control you, you're stepping down from the throne that was always yours. But every time you choose silence, power, detachment, and self-respect, you're sitting taller in that throne, reminding the world and yourself that no man decides your worth. So the next time he ignores you, remember, you are not desperate. You are not weak. You are not waiting. You are the prize. And the only man who deserves you is the one wise enough to never risk losing you in the first place. Now, if this message woke you up, if it lit a fire inside you, don't just sit on it. Live it. Apply it. And if you want more hard-hitting truths that keep you standing strong, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I'm not here to whisper you back to sleep. I'm here to shout you awake into your power.